Hello everyone, this is Direwolf20 and welcome to episode 60 of Direwolf20's Let's Play series. I am getting set up and ready to go. I have an awesome nuclear bunker. I'm really excited about this thing. We tested it last episode, not sure if you guys remember, or maybe you missed that episode, but we built this magical room out of all Thaumcraft blocks. And the magic thing about Thaumcraft blocks is only the player who placed them can break them. And you can only do that by using a magic wand. This means they're completely protected from explosion. And we even set off a nuclear bomb that we, put in here. Just place the nuclear bomb down, set it off, and ran out of the room. As I stood outside, I made sure that there was no damage anywhere. The entire world survived and had no problems. So the flooring, the roofing, everything is intact and worked out perfectly. So we've got a very secure room now that we're ready to build this nuclear bunker in. I still want to do everything I can to monitor the temperature and the EU outputs and all that important information, so we're still going to check on that, but we don't have to worry about any potential problems from an overheated nuclear reactor. And believe me, I'm going to be pushing the boundaries of what we can do with nuclear reactors. It's very possible that this thing's going to get close to overheating, so we're going to do our best to keep it cooled and keep it down to a reasonable level. So I'm going to get situated, make sure I've got all the resources I need, and then what I'm going to do is come back, start building out the nuclear reactor, show you guys my plan for the awesome epicness that will be the nuclear reactor production and how we're going to keep everything going the way we want it to. And just out of curiosity, how are my emerald queens doing? All right, doing some good job, making me some emeralds. Awesome. Good. So we'll be back in just a few minutes to check on everything and see how we can do awesome things with nuclear reactors and magic. Alright guys, time for Nuclear Reactors 101. There are several components that you can place inside the nuclear reactor user interface, or graphical user interface, or GUI, or GUI, which is a proper pronunciation. Those of you who haven't watched Direwolf's videos know that some people don't like the word GUI, though it's a proper pronunciation. Yes. GUI is also proper. However, you can see there's an inventory here, right? Nuclear reactor, ready to go. What you have to do is place items inside the nuclear reactor. Now, every item you place in here causes a different function and a different thing to happen. Long story short, nuclear reactors produce two things: energy and heat. Energy in the form of EU, and heat in the form of heat. Heat is bad. What happens is the nuclear reactor actually has two things that can absorb heat. Either the reactor hull itself, so the nuclear reactor itself starts to heat up, or some of the components inside the nuclear reactor. And different components cause different things to happen with the heat and with the energy being produced. If the nuclear reactor gets too hot and it overheats, it will explode, which is bad. So there's ways that we can reduce the heat. There's many different items you can create to mitigate your heat chance. One of the first things we're going to talk about is how to create energy, and that's uranium cells. Okay, there are three types of uranium cells. Let me find the other one. Here we go. Here's your standard uranium cell. Okay, uranium cells, when you place them inside the nuclear reactor, will produce a small amount of energy and a small amount of heat. Really simple. Pretty straightforward. You've also got something called coolant cells. What coolant cells do is if they are next to a uranium cell in the interface, so if you got a uranium cell here and you've got a coolant cell in one of these four areas, not on the corners are not touching, they have to be to the left or right or top or bottom, they will absorb a certain amount of heat from the uranium cell. Now the problem with coolant cells is they can only absorb so much heat and they will not cool themselves off. They simply store the heat, and once they've stored as much heat as they can, the heat starts going back into the reactor cell. So coolant cells are like temporary storage for heat. The other thing you've got is a heat exchanger. What that does is if there's a piece of uranium in the cell and it's creating energy, the heat exchanger can exchange the heat between either two adjacent components. So if you had a uranium cell, a heat exchanger, and then a coolant cell, this heat exchanger here would swap the heat between the two items on its side and try and balance it out, basically. Okay, and then finally you've got reactor plating, which helps reduce damage from explosions and stuff like that. Now you've got some upgrades to some of those things, like the reactor heat exchanger does a better job exchanging heat between the reactor and adjacent components, whereas the component heat exchanger does a better job exchanging heat between adjacent components. So if there's heat in the reactor, the reactor heat exchanger will transfer it into a component, whereas the component heat exchanger will just share it between nearby components. And the advanced heat exchanger just has different numerical values in terms of how much heat it can exchange. There's also the 30K and 60K coolant cell varieties. They are just basically upgrades to the 10K. They can store more heat. Now, I haven't told you guys yet how to get rid of heat. The way you do that is with heat vents. What they can do is they can vent heat into the atmosphere and remove it from the whole system. So it basically says take that heat and get rid of it. So the mini game here is basically, how much energy can we produce while at the same time keeping the heat down. Now there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Now so far, after you create all these components, maintenance is free. So basically, as long as none of your components get destroyed, because some components will eventually break if they're completely overheated, how do we maintain this? That's an interesting question. Now, there's a lot of different options you can go with. You can build a nice, stable reactor that will, not build up much heat at all. You can also build reactors that build up a good amount of heat, but they'll run out of their fuel before they hit that critical explosion point. And then finally, there's other types of reactors that will get too hot, and if they're not manually shut off by some kind of monitoring system, they will explode, but maybe you want to shut it off and let it cool down. Now, the one thing I haven't told you that makes it even more interesting is dual and quad uranium cells. The interesting thing about uranium cells is if you place them next to each other in the grid, they'll kind of bounce off each other and they'll become more efficient. And you'll get more energy out of the uranium cells than you would have otherwise if they weren't sitting next to each other. And if you've got dual and quad, you're getting even more uranium cells out of it, but you're also getting that much more heat. So it basically makes it more efficient in terms of you'll get more energy overall per uranium that you place in there. However, it will be noticeably more heat, and therefore you're going to need a lot more cooling. Now, there's one last component that I haven't told you about, and these are the guys we're going to use. They're called RSH condensators and LZH condensators. Okay. Now, coolant cells will absorb heat and store it, and then you can place them with some heat exchangers and heat vents to exchange the heat out of the coolant cell, dump it into the heat vent where it gets dumped out into the atmosphere. So these coolant cells can be cooled down, and then eventually there's no more heat in the system. However, the LZH condensators, these guys are one-time use, burn it up and done. There's no cooling them down. They will absorb heat, and then that's it. They use up their resources, but they can be recharged with one of two things. You can either recharge them with redstone, and that will recharge the LZH condensator, which is the second tier version, up to about 5%. And the RSH condensator is the first tier one, and it can be restored by 50%. So these guys can't absorb much heat, they quickly break down, and they're recharged with redstone. These guys can store even more heat. It's like the Tech 2 version. Note that it uses 2 of them in the recipe, and it can be refilled by lapis lazuli for about 40%. So if we were being really creative, what we could do is build a reactor that produces a ton of heat, but it all gets dumped into these LZH condensators, and then build a system that will automatically refill the lapis lazuli in that little item and put it back in the reactor so that we're constantly using lapis to keep the reactor cool. And I'm thinking it's going to be pretty awesome. Now, you guys might have noticed that one of the bee species that I got here last episode, it should be right here, was a lapis species serum. That means I have a bee that can create lapis lazuli. I hope you guys are thinking this through by this point. Pretty awesome, right? So we've got a couple things that are brewing already. What else can we come up with? Well, we also have a UU matter recipe that creates lapis lazuli. And we can create UU matter using EU. And if my calculations are correct, we're going to be producing more EU than we need to maintain the fuel of this reactor. Now, if you want to get really in-depth with nuclear reactors, and believe me, there's a ton of math involved, and there's numbers behind all these things, how much heat they can exchange, how much heat they can put out, how much heat they get rid of, all kinds of crazy numbers behind the scenes. You can jump over to the forums at industrialcraft.net, and there's a whole forum dedicated to nuclear engineering with a bunch of people who are way smarter than me, came up with some really, really good nuclear reactor designs. There's some standard designs out there that you can get. They'll link them to you. You can check them out. You can even, there's a Java applet that you can grab and start playing around and coming up with your own designs, and it'll tell you how quickly the machine will burn up and how much energy you get. It gives you all the numbers numbers. It's really a lot of fun if you're into that kind of thing. Definitely go check it out. I will try and put a link in the description of this video for you guys. But if I forget, just yell at me in the comments and I'll edit it in. So yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested in the nuclear reactor stuff. Now, I'm going to jump straight to building a silly, crazy nuclear reactor. But maybe at some point I'll build a stable one just to show you guys what it's like. But the one I'm going to produce is going to create a lot of EU, but remember, at the cost of maintaining the lapis lazuli right here. This stuff is going to have to constantly be fed into the system to keep the reactor cool. However, if you build it in a stable way, you'll be producing less energy over time and less rapidly, but it won't cost anything to run, except for more uranium every now and then, which, you know, we're doing all right with. Alright, so I'm going to start building the components that I need. The first thing I'm going to need to get myself is some quad uranium cells. For that, we're going to need a bunch of dense copper plates. We're going to need a bunch of dense copper plates, and we're going to need a bunch of uranium, along with some empty cells. So according to my math, I'm going to need 4 of these per uranium cell, and I'm going to need, I don't know, 8 and 10. I'm going to need 18 times 4. Alright. I've got a lot of uranium to put together. So I will stack about a stack of this, probably a little bit more than a stack even. Yeah. And I'll start putting this stuff together. And copper, yeah, lots and lots of copper. Let's start putting this in here because that's no joke. There we go. All right, guys, step 1 with uranium, compress it. Step 2 is simply place it in an empty cell, and you've got yourself a uranium cell. Now, the downside to uranium cells, oh, I hate this part of uranium cells. It's the worst part of uranium cells. They don't stack. But we've got this awesome, nifty gadget here called the fabricator. Ooh, fancy and shiny. The fabricator can pull from adjacent inventories, and even better, what it can do is a craft by looking at the adjacent inventories. So let's get an achievement for wood, because Minecraft loves storing my achievements. Put a chest nearby, and maybe we should even upgrade this chest just because we have iron in our inventory, and you know me. If it's vanilla, I'm not going to use it if I don't have to. There we go. Lovely. Pick this stuff back up, and we can put you all in there. Okay? Now, what I could do if I really wanted to be fancy is put these things in. Okay? And just say, hey you, how do I get one of these? Oh, right. Like this. Ta-da! And I could even set up something really fancy if I needed to, but not necessary. For now, I'm just going to pull all this stuff out. Keep on pulling it out. As it crafts, and does its whole thing. Cool, right? Keep on going. Wow, yeah, we have a lot more to go. So, what I'm going to do to compress this down even further is get some of these dense copper plates. And as we know, the dual uranium cell is just these two guys next to each other, right? So let's do this. You ready? Hold on a second. I'm going to place you in here. And do I have another fabricator laying around? Probably not. But I'm going to get one because I'm going to show you just how awesome these guys can be. So Fabricator Mark II comes from some more engineering brick. Smooth stone, iron, crafting table. Not a problem. Do I have extra of the engineering brick? Probably not, but I'm going to get some. Cool, cool. Just need some redstone and some bricks. That shouldn't be a problem. We'll get about 32. And some redstone and some bricks. Oh, I hear spiders out there. Already causing trouble. Okay. Let's do this. I'll show you another trick. You ready? Oh. Let's try it this way. Okay. Watch this. If you shift click the question mark, by the way, at least I think that's supposed to work. Oh, you know what? That's right, because I need this. Shift-click the question mark, and it'll automatically distribute all the items in your inventory in here in a balanced manner. So you can see it pulled out the 8 redstone, it pulled out the stone bricks, and it's going to make the red engineering brick for me. And then if I do the same with this, it won't pull anything out because I don't have a crafting table in my inventory. Ah. But I just wanted to show you that neat trick. I thought you guys would get a kick out of it. And the crafting table. Fabricator, number 2. Okay, and we'll just put this guy right here, and in here I'm going to put my uranium recipe. So this is advanced crafting with fabricators. Check this out. Boom. Where's it getting all this stuff from? Well, it's getting the uranium cells automatically from here, which is getting it automatically from here. Nice, right? And it'll just keep making as many dual uranium cells as we want. Awesome. So cool. And here I could even upgrade to quad uranium cells like this. And ta-da! Nice, right? It's going to pull the duals out of the adjacent inventories yet again and make quads. So I'm going to make a bunch of these, and then I'll be back. So the next thing I'm going to need is a bunch of these LZH condensators. I'm going to need a decent amount of them, I think. So I want to make sure I just have everything that I need. Yeah, I'm going to need 4, 8. I'm going to need the same number, 18. Okay, I can manage that. So I'm going to need 36 of these things, which is a lot of redstone, and a heat vent and a heat exchanger. I'm going to need a lot of materials for this. This is going to take a long time to make. Holy cow, that's expensive stuff. Yeah, nuclear reactors are not cheap, especially when you're trying to use and abuse them as badly as I am. Holy cow, that's a lot of stuff. I'm going to need electronic circuits. I'm going to need a lot of things. All right, let's get these things started first. I'm going to need 36 of them. Wow, that's a lot. And of course, they don't stack either, so, you know, awesome. So you guys, you can see that I am slowly but surely making progress on these RSH condensators. They are quite expensive and a little bit painful, but we're getting there. Making as many heat exchangers as we need, making as many of the other stuff, the heat vents as we need. So yeah, we're getting there. Heat vents, let's go back to that. Heat vents, heat vents, heat vents. Needs more refined iron. Lots of resources included to make a nuclear reactor, but, you know, I'm doing all right on resources. I think I'm good here, so doing what I can. But definitely use fabricators for this. It makes it a heck of a lot easier. There we go. One more of these, and that should be the 36 of these, or the 18 that I need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we've got close to 36. Now, of course, we have to bump it up to this guy. So we're going to need reactor heat vents. Oh, man, we're going to need even more heat vents? Are you kidding me? Goodness, that's going to be brutal. Yeah, LZH condensators are ridiculously expensive. But, like I said, all in the name of fun. This is going to be a very, very powerful nuclear reactor. When you see the EU output, you're going to be pretty shocked. You know, this one's really painful. I need 18 of these, and that means I need 36 dense copper plates. Holy cow, that's a lot. But we're getting close. We're getting super close. All right, let's see if this works. Give me good things. Why no good things? Ah, that's why. Okay, I just need a little touch of redstone to go in here, and now everything should start shrinking down into more manageable LZH condensators. All right, that's better. I had to make a lot of other materials in order for this to work out. So more reactor, you guys. I should have more stuff than that. Is that all I need? Am I done here? I guess we'll find out in a second. I need a little something more. There we go. All my math turned out right. Out of curiosity, I think I'm going to go look at how much copper I had before I started this process. All right, just for reference, guys, when I started this episode, I had 36 stacks of copper. Now I've got 2. Just for reference. I think I'm going to have to go turn on my nifty gadget downstairs. You, start running again, please. I am hurting for resources. You know what, I do have some more copper around here somewhere. Where'd I put it? Yeah, there's a couple more stacks in here. So I'm not like totally out of copper, but really close, right? I mean, and I've still got 16 dense copper plates. But I have all the quad uranium cells and the LZH condensators that I'm going to need. Now, there is one more thing I wanted to fill in here, but I want to see how much... Oh, this requires more heat vents? Oh, that's going to be a lot more expensive. How many of these did I want to fill in? It really doesn't matter too much what I put in here. Give me a second to figure out a really cheap item that I can place in here. I could probably just put regular heat vents, right? Yeah, I think so. Probably. Oh, it's killing me, but I need to use more copper plates. Basically, the reactor I built has a lot of extra space in it, but I don't want it to, so I have to find some other things to fill that space with. And I determined, just to be safe, because we're probably going to have a little bit of heat buildup here and there, I want to put some golden heat vents, which can drain heat out of the reactor. So I'm building those as we speak. There we go. And I even threw, just to conserve resources, I made a couple reactor platings. Those will allow the reactor to absorb a little bit more heat before exploding. There's also upgraded versions, like the high capacity one, which allows it to absorb even more heat before exploding. But the other thing that this guy does is also reduces the explosion damage. So if it does explode, it won't cause as much damage, which, in my opinion, ain't that big a deal. But, you know, we'll deal with it as it comes. But I think I've got all my stuff. Woot. So, clean up inventory time, then off to take care of building a nuclear reactor. Oh man, this is going to be a little nuts. So let's go ahead and put this stuff away, and I'm going to start doing everything I got to do. So I'll be back in a second. Alright guys, so here is the reactor that I came up with. It is by far not the probably greatest design in the world, but I thought it would be fun and interesting and, you know, neat to build. Like I said, proper building of nuclear reactors, you're probably not going to do anything close to this because you're going to want to build something nice and stable. And as I mentioned, if you go on to the forum threads, you'll find a really, really good nuclear reactor. I probably don't want to put that there. I'll put this here. Like I said, yeah, massively better than what I have managed to put together. But like I said, this will be a lot of fun to play with. And it allows for a very complex and interesting build, which will hopefully allow me to do some crazy wild stuff. So this is the reactor design I came up with. Basically, the LZH condensators will absorb all the heat from the adjacent uranium cells. Now, they're going to have to constantly, and I mean constantly, be refilled with lapis. Yeah, that's right, with lapis. So we're going to have to build an automated system to handle that, of course, but no big deal. And if this goes here, where's the... Should have one more of these unless I miscounted something. All right, I don't know. I'll figure it out. These guys can go here, 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 and here. You guys can go all throughout here. And did I miscount something or what? Oh, this gets swapped with this. That's correct. Cool. So the key here is that we have an LZH condensator next to, at least one of them next to each quad uranium cell. What this means is that each LZH condensator is going to be able to, you know, absorb the heat from that cell, and then once it's done absorbing the heat, it's going to go ahead and need to be refilled with lapis. So putting all this stuff away, I want to set up the lapis recharge system that I'm going to have to build. And for that, I want to use a couple of fabricators. So I've got a couple of fabricators right here. Awesome. I also want to use some golems. Believe it or not, yes, I'm going to continue the theme of the magical reactor, and we're going to use golems for this awesomeness. So why don't I get all the golem-y stuff I need, and I'll be back. Alright, real quick, putting together some golems. I'm going to need 2 golem cores. Please and thank you. And then I want these guys, as a matter of fact. Clay golems. They're going to be important. So I'm going to need some life force. Got some of that ready. And some animus. Alright, got some of that as well. And yeah, I'm making a mess of the environment. Oh well. I'll have to clean up my Thaumcraft room at some point in the future, but I don't have time to work on that now. I got clay golem workers. Cool. Alright, now let's head over here and show you guys the plan. The basic plan for this reactor build is as follows. I am going to place down right here, probably right here, a chest. Let's just use this gold one. Sure. Alright, I'm actually going to, well, yeah, let's be alright for now. Okay, so gold chest, I think. I also need marker blocks. I'll be right back. Alright, here goes nothing. I have got the plan to do the following, and I probably want to, just to be extra safe, close this. There we go. Right here, I'm going to place this guy, and then I'm going to place a chest right here, I want to say. Then I'm going to place 2 fabricators, and I'm going to place a marker right here. Okay. Now the way this works is I'm going to place a clay golem here. Okay, and this guy, Clay Golems, will keep an inventory full with as many items as it possibly can, or a precise amount. I'm going to put it on any amount. I'm going to tell it to only interact with white containers. I'm going to say, give me as many of item as you can. Now, what I actually need are some completely drained and completely dead LZH condensators. So, let's get ourselves some. What I want to do is, real quick, unfortunately, empty this guy out for a minute. So I know I just spent a whole bunch of time filling him up. Now I need to empty him out for a minute because I need to create a situation where I have some empty condensators. And since I don't want this power to go to waste, I'm making an MFSU. Because I'm going to need to turn this reactor on in a slightly reduced mode kind of way, just to get things going a little bit. And what we're going to need here, as a matter of fact, is a really epic kind of transformer called an HV transformer, because we're going to be producing eventually more power than we can handle on just regular current lines. So we're going to actually need to take an MV transformer, upgrade it with an energy crystal, an electronic circuit, and get myself some of this 4X insulated HV cabling. Crazy stuff. So I'm going to make those real quick, and then we'll be back and ready to roll. Alright, so you guys know we're getting towards the end of the episode, but I want to finish this build to the point where I can release the world upload for it. Now, I'm going to warn you guys, I'm going to give you this world upload, and it's not going to be the most stable reactor ever. I'm going to get it to a position where it's pretty stable, and then I'm going to release the world upload to you guys, and it's your job to follow along with me in the next couple episodes and implement the security measures that I'm going to add in episodes 61 and 62, or at least I'm guessing that's what I'm going to do. But for now, before we get into all that, I'm going to take this LZH condensator, and I'm going to surround it by 4 quad uranium cells. What that's going to do is we're going to have 4 uranium cells dumping all their heat into this one lonely LZH condensator. Now, I'm going to get a couple extra condensators, and I'm going to get myself a lever, because the way you need to start your reactor here is with a redstone signal. So a lever is the best way to get things running. Okay? Apply a redstone signal, and your reactor will run. We'll know it's running because we'll start seeing these things take damage. Now, I did tell you that I'm going to have to hook up some power to this thing. So let's get, let's see, where do I want to set this power up at if I'm going to have this thing right here? Oh, now I'm really feeling like moving it over a little bit. I might want to move it out a little bit. Maybe I don't want it in the exact corner. Let me move this thing, and I'll be back in a second. One moment. Okay, that should work a little better. Now remember, Clay Golems will find a nearby inventory, like this one, and try and fill up whatever I tell it to fill up. So I have to give him an item to keep this chest full of. And what do I want him to keep this chest full of? I want him to keep it full of empty LZH condensators. So what'll happen is when he encounters an empty LZH condensator in the inventory he's told to watch, which happens to be this nuclear reactor, he'll pull it out and place it in the chest. Cool. Then what I'm going to do is tell this guy right here to keep this inventory full. What's he going to keep it full? He's going to keep it full of 80% charged LZH condensators. So I want any amount again, and he can pull out of this white guy right here. Okay. Now I might even want to change the color of this die. Can I change the marker color right up, or do I have to like? Yeah, I might need to get a slightly different color. I'll be right back. Alright, I snagged a red one from back over in my Thaumcraft base. Just one that wasn't too important. And where's red? There we go. So he will pull out of the red inventory, which happens to be this guy. So all I need now is a little bit of lappies and stuff, but let's get this thing running. So lever on the reactor, but I want to connect it to power first. So because this reactor is going to be outputting more than 512 EU per tick, that's right, more than 512 EU per tick, we must use this heavy-duty insulated cabling. And connected to that, I'm going to place an HV transformer. And as we know, we want to put the HV transformer, the 3-dot side facing the cabling, and then the 1-dot side can come out from there. And we'll run this over straight into, at least for now, an MFSU. Cool. Not sure if this is going to be the final position of my MFSU, but we can always store energy temporarily in Labotron crystals to move it. So this is a temporary layout just to get things moving. And activate this guy. Now what's going to happen is this thing's going to start taking damage on everything. The uranium cells drain out the uranium and create energy. And the condensator is taking damage because it's losing its lappies inside. Okay, so we've got this thing filling up with power, and if I were to snag my EU reader, which might be in here, EU reader, I do. We'll see that at this point we're creating 213 roughly 240, EU per tick. Not bad for the 4 quad uranium cells in here. And if you notice, they're not touching each other. If they were, they'd produce a bit more heat and a bit more other cool stuff, like more power. Now, there is a way to read the temperature in the reactor, and I'm going to work on this more next episode, but you can create yourself a thermometer or a digital thermometer, and these guys will both do a good job of reading the temperature in the reactor. You simply right-click with the thermometer, and you're good to go. Now, you can see I put 4 of these uranium cells around the condensator just to make it that much quicker to absorb heat. So this thing's currently absorbing the heat of 4 quad uranium cells. And you can see it lasts a decent amount of time, but not a terribly great amount. I am going to be right back in a minute. I want to grab some lappies and wrap this up. Oh, and I figured it might be a good idea to show you guys why I've got these overclockers set up. You'll note that the overclocked heat vents, remember I told you they pull heat out of the reactor core and dump it out into the environment, and they actually pull more heat out of the core than they can dump at a time. That's why they're overclocked, and eventually they will burn out, so you have to be careful when you use these guys, but I want to show you the purpose of them in this build. What's going to happen is all the heat is going to go directly into the condensator, but once it goes into the condensator, it's going to go ahead and leak out into the reactor hull, and that's going to be a bad thing. So these overclocked heat vents are basically going to be a little bit of a buffer for me, so that when and if the condensators do get destroyed, and the golems will quickly replace them for me, and I'm probably going to have a couple extra condensators set up so that we don't have any lag time, but I think we'll be all right. We'll see. But what will happen is during those brief seconds when there's a missing condensator, the overclocked heat vents will kick in, and they will all pull the heat out of the reactor for me and help to keep it cool long enough for the condensators to get replaced by the golems, which again should only be a few seconds. So hopefully this works out. We're almost heated up. Be back in a second. So from my testing in the single player world where I have cheat mode enabled, I know that it's 9999 at the end, that this thing is going to be completely out of lappies. And when that occurs, we should start seeing the overclocked heat vents start to take a little bit of damage. Now I actually need a couple of these things, so here goes 9999. Now there's damage going into the hull. Quickly replace that. Now the heat's going back into the condensator, and the heat vents will vent their heat and eventually kind of self-repair. But like I said, you will eventually run out. So what I'm telling this guy is, what do you want to keep in this container? Let's close this before a creeper sneaks up on me while I'm building a nuclear reactor. That would be bad. Any amount of LZH condensators that are empty, okay? But first I want to go into this interface and say, hey, LZH condensator that's empty plus lapis lazuli gets you about a 40% refill, okay? So we'll put this guy's interface back in, and what he should do now is he should automatically pull the LZH condensator out of this inventory and place it in the chest. Okay. Now the chest is going to adjacently act with the fabricator. The fabricator is going to refill it. I'm going to set the 40% guy into this fabricator, and he's going to get filled up to 80%. Then I'm going to give the 80% mark to this guy, and he's going to say keep 80% filled into the nuclear reactor. So what's going to happen is he's going to pull out the empty ones, they'll get recharged, he'll put the 80% full ones back in the reactor, and we'll have a bit of a cycle going. Just for fun, I went and got myself a digital thermometer, just so you guys could see what it's like. So I'm getting a nearly full LZH condensator here, and you can see that there is no heat in the reactor hull. It tells you that if the heat gets to 5,000, it'll evaporate water, and if it gets to 8,500, it might start melting rock nearby. And I can tell you guys that around 10,000, heat is the point where it's going to explode. So zombie sounds annoying. Be right back. Okay, so reactor back on, almost at the full heat level. So once this thing is pretty much out of heat storage, we're going to go ahead and check the temperature reading here. And we're going to see how quickly it's going to heat up. So let's keep an eye on it right now. And he should automatically pull this out of this thing. So there we go, 9,900. See how it disappeared? And we're already starting to build up heat. That's not good. Reactor heat is bad. So let's put another one of these guys in. Now what's going to happen is the heat should start going down. And that's because it's all getting drained into our overclocked heat vents. But look how much damage they took. They really didn't last long. They're only going to last a few seconds in here before they're destroyed. So we have to make sure our LZH condensators are swapped quickly Otherwise, we might run into a problem. So that's the basic plan, right? And then the overclocked heat sinks drain the heat out of the reactor into the overclocked heat vents, and then they release the heat themselves, okay? So LZH condensator is being created again. Now, this guy dragged the empty one and dropped into the chest for me. Good job, see? And it went right in here. And look, we got ourselves a mostly 40% recharged one, okay? Now I'm going to go over to here, and I'm going to say 40% recharge plus lapis lazuli equals 80% recharge, okay? So let's pretend this thing was in here still. Boom, it would get adjacently hooked up to this guy. And then we can take the 80% recharge, put this guy right here, and we should be good to go. Now, one more test of this entire system is going to be done by setting this up. Oh, I don't actually want this here. That's bad. Because they will, react with adjacent things, yada yada, fun times. Okay, so what we're going to have to put, oh yeah, we don't want one there either. Great. Let's put the reactor platings. They should act as buffers. So this will demonstrate to you guys the fact that these guys don't take damage, but they will react or act as a buffer. And then the next available inventory slot should just be this one. Okay, so once this drains out, we should instantly see our golems pull the empty one out, drop it in the chest, get recharged once, get recharged twice, golem puts it back in the reactor, boom. Let's see how quick it happens. Alright, we're back. This thing is almost dead, and if everything goes according to a plan, it should quickly be replaced by one that's 80% full. Here goes nothing. Come on, golems, do your thing. Ta-da! Look at how quick that was. Boom! These guys had instant access and instant replenishment. That is perfect. So let's turn this guy off, pull everything out, and design it properly. Of course, it didn't occur to me that I had to put 2 LZH condensators inside my golems, so I was not prepared for this part of the plan, but no big deal. Okay, we have a decent amount. Let's do that. Good enough. Do I have everything I need here? Yeah, I do. Nice. Alright, so we have to wrap up the episode pretty soon here, but I do want to turn this reactor on and show you guys the full running feature. So like I said, we saw what happens, right? These things don't cool off. These things do. These things take damage as they're creating energy, and these guys will release heat into the air. We've got a small supply of lapis to store in here, okay? So if we flip this on, we should start producing lots and lots of energy. All the heat goes into the LZH condensator. The thermometer tells us that we're not creating any heat at all. You ready for the overall energy reading on this guy? 2001 EU per tick. That's right. We're averaging around 2,000 EU per tick, filling up this MFSU. Wow. 2,000 EU per tick. Hope you're happy. That's a lot of energy, okay? In fact, we're about to fill up our MFSU, and if we leave this nuclear reactor running, we will happily waste all our uranium going into an MFSU that cannot be filled, okay? We will also, if we keep our reactor running, run out of lapis eventually in our fabricators. So this is a word of warning to those of you who are about to download my world and play with it and stuff. I'm turning off the reactor. You can turn it on if you want to play with it. If you want to build your own systems for implementing and refilling the lapis and measuring when the MFSU is full and disabling the nuclear reactor under all these circumstances, go for it. It'll be a lot of fun to build. But I'm going to work on things like that next episode because we got to wrap up here. I'm already way past the wrapping up point, but I wanted this to be semi-complete, at least this stage of it, before I release the world download to you guys. So let this episode run a little bit long, but no big deal. Okay, so 2,000 EU per tick, magical-based nuclear reactor with Thaumcraft blocks and golems. Cool. You guys rock. Way to go, golems. All right, we will be back next episode. Like I said, we have to build a system to A, automatically create lapis, possibly from bees, though I'm not sure if bees are going to be able to keep up, and probably from UU matter. So it'll probably be a combination of bees and UU matter. UU matter being created, of course, by the energy from the nuclear reactor. Ha. Very cool. Yeah, so plenty to do to get this thing finished, but in the end, we will be producing more UU matter than we are using to create the lapis. According to this little fancy widget that I've got, my information tells me that we are having about a 64% overall profit in this. So the building cost is pretty high in terms of UU matter, but running cost There's about 800 UU matter required to run it. But like I said, we're producing 200, or 2,000 EU per tick. Overall, one entire cycle of this, which will, be, what is it? Like an hour or something like that. I forget how long a cycle is. 2 hours, 46 minutes is the cycle runtime of a nuclear reactor before the uranium runs out. Overall output EU, 400 million EU. So that's 40 MFSU's worth of energy are going to be created by one cycle in the nuclear reactor before the uranium runs out and then needs to be replaced. And then another 400 million. So lots of EU. Hope you guys enjoyed checking it out. We will be back next time to implement automatic temperature monitoring. We'll automatically turn off the nuclear reactor if we're missing anything or if we're short on something. We'll keep an eye on how much lappice we have inside those fabricators, how much extra lappice we've got, and we will just do a bunch of cool stuff. Then after the nuclear reactor is finalized, there's a lot more I want to get into. Some UU matter production, maybe getting a gravity suit, maybe eventually building a applied energistics lab, all kinds of good stuff. All right, guys, Direwolf 20 signing off episode 60. World download will be available soon if it's not already. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and take it easy.